Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we've got the boss dungeon guide for Tol Dagor. Now up first is the Sand Queen, and the big mechanic that the Sand Queen does is summon sand traps underneath players. Now these sand traps will explode and stun a player for 4 seconds if they walk over the sand trap. So make sure you avoid stepping on any of these traps, and they are going to increase in number as the fight goes on. And in Heroic and Mythic mode, each one of these traps, when they do spawn, also spawn an ad that needs to be DPS down. When this ad does go down, it does actually buff the boss with the haste and damage done buff, so you can either choose to nuke the ads down when the boss goes underground, or soothe the boss after all the stacks are received. Now another mechanic for this boss is the Sandstorm. This is unavoidable environmental damage, and what it's going to do is it's going to be doing damage and blowing all of the players in one direction. So you're going to need to counter the movement for this and make sure you do not get pushed into a trap. The very last mechanic by the Sand Queen is Upheaval, in which one person will be marked, and once that person is marked, the boss is underground and will come up from underneath the ground and do a big AoE around that person. So the person who is marked has to separate themselves from the group, get away from everyone as to not cause the AoE damage to go out on everyone else, just themselves. Up next, we have Jes Howlis. Now Jes Howlis does do an interruptible fear cast, which is going to hit the whole group, so make sure you interrupt it. And also he is going to be doing throw shiv at a person, which will make them get a poison dot. This needs to be cleansed by the healer as soon as it goes out. The last thing that this boss does is flashing daggers. This is a big AoE damage that you need to line of sight in order to not get hit by it. So when you see this cast go out, make sure you run around the corner to a location where you can no longer see the boss and stay there until the cast is over. At 50%, the boss will actually run through the hallway that you just came down, open up all of the jail cell doors, and summon the elite ad that is in there. Now, if you do have a rogue, a blacksmith, an inscriptionist, or a jeweler, they can actually open the doors before you engage the boss, so that during this phase, the boss will not be able to summon these ads. Now once the boss reaches the end, the boss will start casting Motivating Cry, which means that he will get a 10% buff every 2 seconds that this channel is being cast. So make sure you interrupt that as soon as possible. Once you do interrupt that Motivating Cry, you just go back to phase 1 with Interrupting Fear, avoiding the flashing daggers, and cleansing the poison. Now in Heroic and Mythic mode, when the boss does spawn all of the ads through the jail cells, an extra ad will be spawned named Bobby Howlis. This ad also has an AoE fear cast that needs to be interrupted, and the other big mechanic for this ad is that this ad will jump on a person, cause a 30-second stun, and start clawing at this person. Now when this goes out, the ad will actually get a bubble, so what you need to do is DPS the bubble first and then interrupt the ad from clawing the person. Up next, we have Knight Captain Valyri. And for this boss fight, there are going to be barrels all around the room. Each one of these barrels can be picked up by a player and dropped off in a different location. It is important to note that these barrels will explode 4 seconds after taking fire damage, and that damage will almost be enough to one-shot you, so be very careful when dealing with this. The boss will be spawning small AoE fire zones on the ground, so if there is a barrel in these fire zones, make sure to pick it up and move it out of the fire zone. And the boss will also cast Cinder Flame. This is a frontal cone fire ability that will be cast either at a person or a barrel. And if there are any barrels in that frontal cone area, make sure to move out of the way and get that barrel as well out of the way so that the barrels don't explode on anyone, because it can be a one-shot. The other mechanic that is going to be happening here is that players are going to be getting a debuff called Fuse Lighter. This will make the player with this debuff actually be flammable, so any barrels that this person is carrying will immediately catch on fire and begin blowing up. So if you do have this dot on you, do not pick up any barrels because they will immediately begin the explosion process. Last boss here is Overseer Korgus. Now throughout the fight, Overseer Korgus will switch from 2 different buffs on himself. One is Incendiary and the other is Blast. If he does have the Incendiary buff, this means that any ability that the boss does will leave a dot on the person. And if he does have Blast, this means that any ability the boss does will knock the player back. One of the first things that this boss will do is a small AoE around a player, so this means you do not stack up, and if you are in the dot phase, then your healer has to get ready to spam AoE heals because multiple people will get a dot. And if you are in the blast phase, make sure you do not get knocked back into any other extra abilities that may one-shot. Another ability cast is Deadeye. This will be cast at a player, which will spawn an arrow underneath the boss, and the group should rotate who goes in front of this arrow and gets the debuff, because once you have one stack of the debuff, the next time you receive this Deadeye shot, you will take 500% more damage from it. So just like we used to do in Black Root Cold, make sure that you alternate who gets this debuff and let it fall off before you get another stack of it. Also, if you look around the arena, there are going to be multiple cannons here, and these cannons will randomly spark up, face a certain direction in which players are, and begin a blast. This blast takes 4 seconds to cast and can one-shot you, so make sure you avoid standing in front of the cannons. The last ability that goes out here from this boss is Cross Ignition. This is an AoE on the ground which is going to cause massive damage near one shot again, and this basically just has a lot of slices, and some slices are extremely dark and just blacked out, and other slices are not. You want to avoid standing on the blacked out slices and stay on the ones that still look like the textured ground underneath you. Now in Heroic and Mythic mode, you do have one extra mechanic here, which is the Heartstopper Venom. And this venom will gradually fill up with movement, move the least amount possible. Now, if this bar does go full, you are going to receive an 8-second stun, which means that you might be standing inside some of the mechanics for this boss, which the large majority of are one-shots. So for this venom, just make sure that you only move when required to move out of abilities. And that does it for this guide. If you like my content, like what I do, want to help support the channel, go ahead and visit my Patreon down below. I do also stream every Wednesday and Friday here and on Twitch, so give me a follow on your favorite platform. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, good luck out there.